day, good afternoon, and good morning wherever you are in the art world. So today we start our week after Basel, Art Basel, with a very, very interesting art talk with Kerstin Gold and Kristina Leipold. Hello, good evening.
Hello.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening again. And so we are the co-founders of Art and Tech Report. So I just want to say to our audience, if you ever still have some thoughts, to know and wonders about what happened in this new brave digital world where we are, Kerstin and Kristina will tell you all about. So to you both, I will start with my first questions. I would like to know what is your background?
Well, let me start with saying thank you for the nice introduction, but also for tonight's invitation. We feel very honored to have such a platform for our dear little project. And I'm beginning with myself and then handing over to Kristina, if you like. And my name is Kerstin. I am based in Berlin. I'm an art market strategist and consultant. I am working together with galleries, but also with cultural institutions and creative startups at the intersection of art and technology. And my main expertise being corporate strategy, business model innovation, and digital transformation. And last year in January, I've co-founded Artpreneur.io together with my dear friend and colleague, Kristina. And Artpreneur understands itself as a sort of think tank because we've always been keen and curious around the killer question, as we think how technology and the digital transformation has an impact, will change and challenge the art market system as we know it. And when we launched our project, we said from the very beginning, we wanted to start with analysis and research first. And that's obviously what brought us to the birth of the Art and Tech Report. But before jumping into the report, I think I should hand over to Kristina to let her introduce herself.
Thank you, Kerstin, and thank you, Carolina, again for inviting us. So I guess you could call me a cultural manager with a big affinity for technology. I started my career working in tech for SAP a long time ago. And after a couple of years, I slowly transferred into the cultural and the art world. And finally, I found a way to connect both when I was working for Google Arts and Culture, which you might know as well. And in addition to working with Kerstin as Artpreneur, which you just introduced, I'm currently the commercial director of LAS. LAS Light Art Space is a Berlin-based art foundation that brings together art, technology, and science. But at this point, I would like to mention that there are actually 4 co-founders of the Art and Tech Report. So we are 4 altogether. And there's also Johanna Neuscheffer and Anne Schwanz, which we quickly saw popping up on the screen. So she might be here. Hello, Anne. Yeah, that's about me.
Thank you. And that's the wonderful, I think, it's this embracing 4 of you, this report. So what inspired you, the 4 of you? So you are the voice today of this wonderful, inspiring.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Kerstin, shall I go?
Yeah, please.
Yeah, okay. So the 4 of us, Kerstin, Anna, and Johanna, we've known each other for a long time since we're all based in Berlin and all working, having different functions, working in the art market. And we share a strong interest in future-oriented scenarios for the art ecosystem. And as all of you know, with the start of the lockdown, beginning of the year 2020, I believe it was even March 2020, galleries had to close and gallerists had to really get creative and basically started digitizing their businesses overnight in order to stay in touch with the collectors and their artists and keep business running. And we observed what was going on, and pretty soon we saw there was quite some frustration in the market, and as it didn't really work out as planned. And that's when the four of us, I intensified our conversations, and we decided to ask collectors then how they would like to buy art online. And that's when the Art and Tech report was born. So it was basically a momentum last year.
Wonderful. And it was released when, Kerstin?
In April. And maybe it's worth to add, I don't know how you guys experienced March, April, and May in other countries, but in Germany, there was a lot of creative energy in, as Kristina said, in digitizing overnight from a gallery point of view. But then also there was a very huge frustration very soon, because online sales didn't really pay out as in the form everyone has been wishing for. And then there was this moment where voices were expressed saying that's what we always thought, you can't really sell art online. And people were looking for the reason why it didn't work. And the four of us said, and first thought, then said, why don't you ask the people who were supposed to buy online? And that's why we actually said we need to concentrate on the consumer side to understand what's maybe been missing in how people want to buy art online. And maybe it's worth, if you allow, to mention a couple of things on the methodology, because people have been asking if this is a decent report. So we just wanted to reiterate that obviously we spend quite a lot of time on the questionnaire itself, but we also said from the very beginning we wouldn't want to make use of our own mailing list, like private mailing lists of collectors. So we decided early on that we wanted to cooperate with partners. So we had cooperations with collectors clubs, but also a young circle of cultural institutions to send out the survey link. And that's been the reason why we gained so much reach and eventually managed to get back nearly 400 completed questionnaires. And I don't know if any one of you actually managed to take part, but it's been a very extensive survey. So it came as kind of a surprise to us as well, that so many people we didn't actually know took the time and effort to complete the survey. And we evaluated everything in February and March. And that was a very intense time for us as a team as well, by the way, very exciting, how differently you can look at the same data depending on what kind of angle you take upon. And then we've published everything in April via the website, arttechreport.com. And that was a very important part of the whole project for us from the very beginning, because we said we want to share everything we gain for free in an easy, accessible, digestible form. So everything is out there on the website. And if you are keen on even more information, you can download the full report from the website, and it's for free, because it was always meant to be for everyone who's interested in the market in terms of their very own sustainable future when it comes to gallery models.
Wonderful. Kerstin and Kristina, could you tell us, though, the most interesting findings? I know just got some,
all
but
of them. All of them.
All of them.
I can do is quickly run you through like our key findings. So in a nutshell, and then I think Kerstin will highlight again like the most surprising ones. So first, yes, collectors are missing the physical experience when buying art online. As you just mentioned in the beginning, Art Basel was full of people. It was really nice to see people again. So people really enjoy the physical experience. Nevertheless, they also bought art online across all age groups and all art forms. So 80% of the surveyed participants have bought art online at least once. And they will do so even more in the future. So completely detached from the pandemic, nearly 70% of participants said they will buy the same amount of art or even more art online in this year, so in 2021. So I guess, people buy art online, and that's not going to go away, but that's, I guess, something we'll be still speaking about later. So the next key finding, so we called it buying blind, which means not seeing art in real life. So more than 3/4 of those who had bought art online hadn't seen the work in real life. So not just seeing the work in real life, they also were often unfamiliar with the artist or the work itself, which in a way was surprising, at least to me. So I think this makes very clear that in the future it will no longer be about whether people buy art online, but it's really how people or how collectors want to buy art online. And this is what we asked with the report. So, for example, collectors want more direct purchase options, such as click and buy, swipe ups, QR codes, everything they might be used to from other online purchases is something they expect when they buy art as well. And yeah, I guess no surprise, everyone wants to see prices. So 9 out of 10 respondents we asked want to see prices. And every second person expects the usual e-commerce standards as it's very convenient and they're used to, such as returns, payment plans, shipping options, proof of authenticity, and so on. And they want to buy on Instagram too, which is not possible or not as common yet. And finally, something I really like to stress as well, we think from the feedback we received, the future collectors, or let's call them the next gen collectors, are female. So the proportion of women in the younger generation of collectors is 64%, which is significantly higher than the age groups over 40. So I think this is a really nice key finding. So as Kerstin said, if you can read all of this and you get more details on our website in the Art and Tech report. But now, Kerstin, over to you for a brief deep dive into the most surprising findings.
Yes, thank you.
Before I do this, you're always welcome to interrupt and ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
So that would be a moment to address one, or I'll just keep on talking.
Yes, I think, Kerstin, we will just listen and then we will our audience to ask any questions.
Okay.
I'm leaving the most difficult question to Francois.
All right. Well, we picked 2 key findings in particular we thought might be interesting for you, especially when it comes to going forward in the field of e-commerce and our dear industry. And the first one is called digital and personal. And we discovered that across all the online sales formats we examined, over 66%, that's over 2/3 of all people said they really would like to have a personal communication whilst being online. 25% of them said they would like to have a possibility of a video call. Another quarter said they would love to have a chat live, and still 20% ask for a link to a direct messenger app. So that clearly shows, and that came as a kind of a surprise to us as well, that digital very obviously is not the opposite of personal, but needs to combine both from a consumer perspective. And accordingly, one of the main reasons or pain points why respondents said they didn't buy online art at the end was because of this lack of personal communication. And even more surprising or interesting is that they clearly stated this form of personal communication should be in real time rather than in real life. So rather than waiting for a phone call to come back to you or an email to be sent to you by someone in person, they rather prefer any kind of communication in real time. And we think that's, that comes as a kind of surprise because they were so specific in this demand, but also because I think we can all picture that this is a huge challenge, how to incorporate personal communication in an online art buying process. to be fair, this is not a new discovery, and there are many other industries where this is already lived and used and successfully proven. It's called conversational commerce, where you incorporate the kind of conversation into the digital processes. But we also all can assume that talking about art will be slightly different than talking about shoes or glasses while shopping them. So we still think it might form a challenge, but we don't think there's room to be discussed. I think it needs to be incorporated in processes because people are used to them and they are service enough to actually demonstrate that if you incorporate such communication tool, then you can enhance the frequency people come back and also the value of the shopping cart when the purchase is done. So lots of work probably, but definitely a very, very intriguing insight.
Wonderful. And it's really interesting, to know that there is always this human touch that we can't, that we have to be, we are still connected, which is beautiful in a way, because I think that it's one of the most important element that was missing in all of this couple of difficult months. Could I ask you, do you know if these art collectors were buying from different platforms, which were auction houses online, or also from different galleries that they started to do? Do you know if there was, if you know from which?
You mean from our report, from the survey itself?
Yes.
We've examined online sales formats in a specific category, and that included e-shop, online third-party platforms, online auction houses, online art fairs, Instagram newsletters, and help me out, Kristina. I think that was it.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Social media, and we perceived them as online sales formats. So those answers were across everyone who's entered and used online sales formats and has purchased via online sales formats. So I couldn't particularly link it to one specific online sales format, but I think it's fair to say this is a need or a consumer need, which probably refers to every single purchase transaction wherever it's made.
Mm-hmm. Wonderful. Francois, would you like to add anything?
Yes, please. Thank you, Carolina. So I was reading an article today that during Art Basel, some galleries were not able to bring in staff, so they just sent over the artworks, and Art Basel actually had their own staff in the booth. Mm-hmm. And when they wanted to talk, there was a kind of a tablet iPad that communicated directly with the gallery. Mm-hmm. So this leads me to a question about evolution from physical to digital. Mm-hmm. And we all know that traditionally, galleries specifically have a very limited amount of people inside of the gallery to keep labor costs to a minimum. And so, as you put it, Kerstin, I think that having people in the gallery being able to answer a video call, a phone call, to talk to somebody online, and clearly you can have a lot more people online than in your gallery, may become challenging. And so my question, and this is something I've been thinking about a lot, is once everything goes back to normal, if it does, and whatever the new normal means, is there a risk where for the mainstream galleries, the big galleries, the one that survived the virus, that they may actually go back to physical and the digital falls aside because they just won't have the manpower to really dedicate to that endeavor?
Kristina, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, please go.
I have to say it's a question we've been asked quite a lot because our report not only provokes laugh, but also counter questions. And I don't think we do have the answer, but we do see the challenge because it's all about resources. And we still don't believe that it's jumping back to where we were 1.5 years ago. Because clearly when you take on the consumer side, why would any consumer or customer be willing to go back to a time whereas over the last 1.5 years they had flexibility, efficiency, transparency, everything provided through digitization. So I don't think that can be drawn back from consumer side. When it comes to the gallery side, I mean, what we all see or assume will be that maybe the way galleries operated 2 years ago will not be the way they go back to, starting with the amount of fairs being visited and also the amount of works being shipped across the world. So there might be a potential to free capacities to actually invest into digital engagement. I also think it could be an overall restructuring of galleries. Sometimes we do have a look at job offers. Zwirner is posting, and it's very interesting to see what kind of people this gallery is looking for. And I know this is not a reference for any normal gallery, but they are clearly looking for digital teams and TikTok managers and in-house programmers. And maybe in midterm, it requires a shift in how you structure your team and where you have to enhance your knowledge in-house, and equally maybe some things are falling apart and are not necessarily in an intent like they used to be. But that's just an assumption. I guess we have to see, and I don't think there's a blueprint. It needs individual solutions.
So interestingly, because you have the Zwirner model, and you're correct, I was actually looking at that, and there were a couple of articles talking about what they were doing. And of course, let me whisper the word NFT. It's on everybody's lips, right? And everybody's kind of figure out how to leverage off of it.
Yeah.
But then you look at the counter side, which is the announcement of Levi, Gorvy, Diane, Greenberg coming together in one gallery, which is not that surprising to the extent that you have a consolidation, right? Which is a good idea. But then you have the announcement that they're going to be regular, ever-changing pop-up shows. And that to me clearly signals that there's a desire to get people to come to the gallery. And again, I think we're back to what you were saying earlier about the communication, the in-person, and something that at a certain level of price can never be replaced by online, or at least not until you've built a very, very high level of trust with the gallery, know the artist really well. I think if you know a gallery really well and they have a work by an artist that is very rare, people are going to take the risk because the risk is actually very, very limited, right? Yeah. But now let's take the conversation to the digital and stay within the digital. So what we've seen is not just galleries digitizing, that was one aspect of it. And that was more of a knee-jerk reaction than a long-term plan for a lot of them. And then you have a secondary one, let's call it the Instagram effect, where all of a sudden, because people had so much more time to be on social media, Instagram was able to create a whole kind of, and they actually didn't do it, which I think is a huge mistake and a huge missed opportunity to not leverage the fact that they had so many artists and the ability to create a different category that would really create an art community. That was a shame. And so you have that part that's emerged. And so now you have opportunities, as you said, for people who can buy art that they've never seen before from countries they've never visited. And so we have a growth there, and I think that will stay. Then you also have digital art, pure digital art that's created on iPads, on tablets, with computers. And so, again, that hasn't even had time to mature until NFT already took a hold of it and kind of became the package for the medium, right? Now it's so much easier to sell a digital artwork as an NFT because you have the hype that goes with it. So now here is my question, I guess, is we have influencers and we don't have real influences within the art world. I think you have people like Bansky and stuff like that, Hearst, who kind of create these, these personas, but it's the personas that people are following. It's not necessarily the art. And so now if Kim Kardashian decides to put up an NFT, is it going to sell better than if the Art Talk puts up an NFT, for example? And how is that going to have an effect on the art market or on the online art market, where the value is not going to be intrinsic to the work of art, but to the person that kind of showcases the work of art. I'm sorry, that was a really long diatribe.
I'm trying to find the question. I've been following you, and now, so would you mind repeating the question or your point of interest?
No, so the question is, we clearly have had secondary art markets being created outside of the traditional art world.
Mm-hmm.
And so in your next report, is that going to be a completely new study and a completely new area of the report?
Kristina?
The next report.
Oh, come on, there's got to be another report.
Yeah. I mean, I have to say, or I guess we have to say, like as mentioned earlier, and being here today with you, I guess also proves that. So we did receive a lot of positive feedback so far from, I want to say, business insiders, experts, but also from players in the market saying they really enjoyed and thought it was very helpful. But if there will be another report, we will definitely look at new questions. And I think the questions we asked first time around, I mean, there are plenty of surveys already asking how collectors want to buy online, definitely need to include NFT. The topic of NFTs, and that's definitely, so we'll see where this will go and what's relevant at that point of time. Kerstin, what do you think?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I was just handing over to you because I thought we wanted to touch upon the NFT subject. But when it comes to the report, I think it's important to understand that everything we ask shouldn't be asked twice. So we don't believe in the repetition of the same report because we really think that should be standard by now. So it would be more about finding the new questions around where to push boundaries, and that would definitely have to include maybe even the whole feat of ownership when it comes to collecting, and how ownership and the need and desire of ownership will maybe change in itself, and what that means for a form of art, speaking of NFTs. But to be very, very honest, everything we did with the first report has been financed by ourselves. And we actually said we're not going to do another round without having proper funding, because yes, we perceive ourselves as Robin Hoods, female ones, but we're also business women, and there needs another solution for the next round. And I think that's where the hesitation came from.
Exactly.
So
that's something we're still looking at, and as Kerstin said, we'll dive deeper and explore, definitely, but funding is crucial for us to move forward.
So if that's okay with you guys, when we actually post on social media, we'd love to just put a note, if somebody, I mean, clearly you're going to need somebody who's kind of independent to fund it. Getting it funded by Zwerner, for example, might be a little more complicated, but we're happy to post something about, you guys looking for funding, because the report was incredibly valuable. I have to tell you, in the beginning, when Kerstin was talking about it, I took notes because I'm working on an idea, and I'm taking notes because I read the report, but hearing it in a different context kind of gave it a different color. I was like, oh, that's a great idea. Oh, that's a great idea. So if anybody thought I was texting, no, I was taking notes, because this was a great report. And I think we need reports such as yours. And at this point, I'm going to enter a bit of a gray area, but not really, because there's too much reporting that's very, very targeted. And what I like about your report is it was facts. You guys ask questions, you analyze the answers, and you put them in a report. Kristina, you were talking about how you kind of, with a tech slant, etc. I don't know if you have the same experience that I do, but I discover 3 to 4 new ad platforms a day. It used to be a year, it became a month, it became a week, it's a day now.
Yeah.
And it's a little crazy because where's the funding coming from? I mean, that's like millions of dollars going into building these platforms. But I like this report, and I want to see it happen again, because I love the fact that there was no slant, there was no parti pris. It was just facts. And I think the facts were surprising. The facts were great. I think it may have actually influenced some people who were not sure about how to take a digital strategy to go, oh, wow, really? 65% of women over 40 are collectors? Well, maybe I should stop being misogynistic and kind of take that into perspective and understand that the world is changing.
Yeah.
So here's a follow-up question for you guys. Were you able to uncover what it is about this period or this generation that is putting women more at the forefront of collecting, or has it always been the case, but it was just kind of in the background?
I don't think it would be fair to say we have very, very deep data on it, but what we did gather is that, and this is no news to any one of you, you collect your very own generation and you mature with your generation of artists. So the more women or female collectors your generation of collectors has, the equally more female artists will be bought and shown, and the visibility is going to be enlarged. And so I think that's a correlation which we can prove. Everything else would be assumption. But I think that the whole Gen Z generation is so much more aware of diversity. And I think there are other reports which prove that the reasons for collecting might differ from the reasons for collecting like 20 years ago. So people or collectors want to make sure they actually mirror diversity in their collection, as small as it might be. And this does not only refer to women, obviously. So I think that could be a collecting trend amongst the younger generation of collectors, because it's something they are socialized with in every other part of their lives as well.
Yeah, and here in Berlin, I know of 2 collectors, female collectors, who purposely only collect women because it's really dear to them, and they know about working in the culture scene, how difficult it can be or has been for women to make yourself a name as an artist.
No, that's great. I was actually reading an article again today on Art Basel, and they were saying that what was the scarcest and the most looked for was female ethnical artists.
Yeah.
That there were very few. So to your point, Kerstin, I think there is definitely an adoption of a diversity and different gender. So this is all interesting, because really your report goes beyond art to really also be a reflection on generational collecting, generational purchasing. Because I've been reading a couple of reports on luxury retail, and a lot of the findings are very similar, actually, in terms of what the expectations are of what people want. But I know that Carolina speaks mostly, actually, and by chance, to women collectors rather than men collectors. Do you want to jump in, Carolina?
Well, today we have Sylvain Levy with us. So I think we should ask Sylvain. Sylvain, are you there? And then I'll jump in. Sylvain, you have to unmute. I don't see Sylvain.
Yeah.
He must have.
I think he may have dropped off.
Might drop.
There's one message in your chat. Maybe it's him.
Yes, so it was him. Actually, unfortunately, we were too late. But Sylvain is a man. No, yes, I actually have met so many art women collectors, which is wonderful to see, and they are extraordinary. But of course, we were all relieved in a way that about Art Basel to see each other. I have to say, even though I have to say, Kerstin and Kristina, we thought there were not so many people. I have to be a bit on the other side. We saw because most of the people from America could not attend. Some people from England, unfortunately, because of the COVID. That's the other issue. There were still problems with the COVID. Some people didn't vaccinate, which is incredible, but it's an issue. And I think that was one of an element that we found was a bit difficult to meet still, which could be relevant on the report. So I think the next report will be all vaccinated or be all not here anymore, because we will have the traces of COVID. So we will be disintegrated in the next 2 years. No, I'm joking. But yes, so I think if anybody from the audience now or would like to speak directly on a question, please do. We have Kerstin and Kristina here. I think I don't see all the screen, so I have to scroll. Shira, we met Shira in Art Basel with amazing. Shira, would you like to add anything?
Yes, sure.
Yes.
This has been an incredible talk. I read the report. I am very impressed and very blown away by everything going on in the space. I come from a machine learning AI background, definitely transitioning into the NFT space as well. And I've spoken a bit with Carolina, with you, and also with Francois about something that I'm currently working on in the space with a team that I'm not going to say too much about now, but it's this report and everything along with it is very much along the lines of what we hope to really move towards in the future of the space, right? And to bring this ability, this interconnectivity of this international art community to the NFT space in a way that it's not really there yet, because it really is first emerging. This has been super inspiring. Art Basel in general was very much, this was my first Art Basel. So it was a new experience for me. I was a bit surprised not to see more stuff in the NFT space, but I'm so grateful that you guys founded this incredible report for art and tech, because there is so much at that intersection that is still not explored.
Thank you. Very kind. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry. We met with Shira, and I'm not going to say anything, but what she's doing with her partner is probably the most exciting thing I've seen in the NFT space and in tech. And it shows how actually very interesting this digital space is bringing people to the art world that were not attracted to it before, who are now coming in and bringing in a vision that didn't exist before that is really exciting. So I think that's been my biggest takeaway from this change, is just people coming from different backgrounds, looking at art with totally fresh eyes. And I think that's going to play a really great role in rejuvenating an industry which, you know, as I've heard you say several times, Kerstin, in interviews, that was one of the last industries to be digitized or taken to the 21st century. So I think we're all surprised because it's going at lightning speed. But I'm so excited. I think we're going to see things that are going to be amazing.
I agree. I hope so.
We'll read it next year's report, because we'll get it funded so that we can have another report.
Okay, pressure is on.
We have another questions from London, no, nearby. No? Yes, hello, from Unit 1 Gallery. Hello, how are you? You have to unmute on the screen. Sorry. Yes.
Hi, it's Stacey McCormick from Unit 1 Gallery.
Hello.
And Fair Art Fair, a new digital platform to connect all these art-interested people. So we're sort of a mix. We're a bricks and mortar gallery, we're a residency program, and we're also now app developers. So we have Fair Art Fair launched, Apple and Android. It's in beta. And I, would like to thank you both, because your art tech report, being free, is phenomenal. And I do see it as a remarkable marketing tool of your intelligence. So I think it's a really good investment you made, both for demonstrating your intelligence, but also really a valuable tool for us, because we're currently in grant making frenzy trying to get government money to help us launch our technology to another level. And the gravity of your report is helping us. So it's the power of it is going beyond just what it's doing for you guys. So my question for you is this kind of really, really interesting paradigm shift, I think, a very overdue paradigm shift in the art world as we know it, the kind of top-down hierarchy that it's always been and been understood as, and then the kind of ensuing people who are outside of it, meaning an enormous number of very qualified artists of integrity and rigor, and an enormous number of interested buyers that have no kind of sense. We're witnessing have a deep interest in buying and purchasing in the digital arena, as long as that environment can have sort of valid, confident and transparent sensation. And I guess throughout that whole speech, there is this question from me that I feel the digital space is actually providing a platform for so many underserved individuals from all sides, whether that's a curator, a collector, a gallerist, or an artist, that there's this new arena that is allowing so many of them to find each other. Is that your sensation as well?
Shall I, dear Kristina? I would definitely agree, but I think that the interesting bit to it is that you described the digital realm as an opportunity for people who might be hesitant to enter a gallery or might not even be included. But I think it goes even further, because everything in the digital realm comes with rules which are standard, and that means transparency, democracy, prices, and the full field of digital self-determination to say, as a customer, as a collector, as a user, I want to see everything I want to know because I'm doing my very own research. And I mean, these are all rules based on online in general, not necessarily on the art market shifting to the digital field. So I think having to digitize the business and becoming players in the digital field actually requires to adjust to online standard commodities and traditions, which are opposite to how the traditional art market has been working or playing along to. So I don't think that's a conscious decision, but it's been a need. And obviously it's inviting everyone because it's more democratic and it's transparent, and I'm providing everyone with the information he or she needs to actually do his or her very own purchase decision. So I think it's a move which has been overdue and is actually posing the challenges on the traditional part of the art market now.
Yeah, that's my definitely.
And maybe I can add, I totally agree with what both of you said. So it's an enablement, I think, for many different players in the art world. And I think new technologies offer also artists new possibilities to express themselves. You have technology as a medium, like new art forms are being created, looking at NFT, for example, or just the possibilities to trade and sell digital art. And I think it also allows for new ways to mediate art, which is important for galleries, but also for institutions, for curators. So I think it's really, open up a lot of new possibilities and channels to, deal with art in any kind of way, from any.
I would like to add also, I would like to bring Olu. Hello, Olu. Would you like to say a word about digitalization and art and tech in Olu, if you hear me? And, everybody. Yes, hello.
Good evening, Caroline. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. I would like to know what's happening in your continent. How was it? How did you see the shift that Kristina and Kerstin are? Do you see any similarities?
Yes, at the moment it's quite slow in the adhering to technology with arts in Africa, specifically from Nigeria, where I am from. But we all know the future is heading there. And in regards to technology in Nigeria, especially, there has been a lot of other sectors and other industry that has adapted to technology. So at the moment, it's a bit delaying in regards to art, but I think moving on into the future, we all know that art and tech is the future. So we all have to find a way to accept the changes in regards to that on the continent.
I would like to add something there.
Yes. Yes, please. Hello.
Hello. Hi, Caroline.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you guys so much for such an incredible report. I myself have just gone through it, and it goes to a conversation that me and Olu always have. And we're always arguing about, can art ever be sold online? And his argument to me is art is not a commodity. It's not. It's one of those things that really you need to have the experience to go with it for you to be able to sell it. But reading a report like yours, it clearly shows that, and I guess COVID allowed us to really see that maybe the apprehensions we had before were a bit less. And so people really were more open to buying or purchasing or looking at art. Which leads me to my question for Christine, is that do you think that technology can be an entrant for younger, I guess like younger kids or people who have not had the access per se to really like start looking at art, and maybe it can be used as a medium to educate people about society through art?
Yes, I totally believe this, and briefly thinking about, so maybe briefly going away from the art market and talking from like an institutional perspective, and maybe the experience I had working for Google Arts and Culture, that's exactly what they did. They used technology in order to make people who might have an affinity for technology but no access to art excited about art, you know. So there's using technology and let's say AR, VR, for example, making it fun and interesting and making people excited, you know, making it a little bit like a game. I mean, there's a lot of artists today who work with game engine software, and which creates a totally different experience with art and lowers the barrier maybe that which might be there to get. So I think it's a technology definitely helps in democratizing art in a way, you know, making it accessible. Yes.
Thank you.
So we actually met Nana and Olu in Basel, and there are these two really cool guys who have this gallery in Cannes. And it was actually really just interesting exchanging ideas. I was at a breakfast yesterday morning in Zurich with somebody who has a company, an AI-based company, who's actually telling me that there's a huge hub right now developing in Ghana around artificial intelligence. And so, you know, again, I think the African continent is very much going to be a game changer for two reasons. Number one, for art, because I think it's a whole new perspective of art. We saw this amazing exhibition of an artist in Geneva that we really liked. And for me, it was a revelation, because I always portrayed art, as we're talking about bringing it to multi-generations, the role of art, what is art. And I always described art as the silent language that would unite humanity. And listening to this artist describe one of his paintings just blew my mind. I'm like, oh my God, with my vision of the world based in a European education and an American business background, then back to Europe, I had zero chance. And I mean, zero chance of seeing what he had portrayed. And so it hit me. It's like, no, art is not about about silence. It's about telling stories. And by telling stories and sharing stories is how we're going to be able to create that language that translates who we are and make us understandable, because that's the barrier right now. It's the fear that's based on lack of understanding. And again, as the African continent, and I'm working with tons of people in the US who are funding programs to build schools, but more than that, to actually put technology in schools. Why? Because Africa is a continent which has a completely different culture, has not really been able to express it just because there haven't been the means. And I think that as we give more voices to more people, we're going to see a whole new vision of the world emerge. And it's those kinds of changes that I believe will lead to fundamental changes in humanity. And so from an art perspective, I know I've been discovering more and more African artists, and it's fantastic, especially once you stop trying to look at art with our eyes, but actually trying to put on different lenses and look at them differently. All of a sudden, it's like discovering a painting behind the painting, which is awesome. And so I'd love for you, Nana, to tell us a little bit about, how you've seen, you're in France, you're in Cannes. So is Cannes typical France? Probably not. But, let's pretend it is. Have you seen a shift in the perception of African artists in Europe?
Yes and no. Actually, with Olo and I, that's a conversation we have a lot, which is the education of trying to educate collectors on African art. Simply because when you look at a Picasso or you look at a Renoir or you look at all these impressionist painters, they have such a huge amount of reference points. So, you're going to see something and then it's going to make you remember something else you saw. And it's easier to, sell a Picasso because there's all these reference points. But if I'm supposed to say to you, oh, okay, there's a Ben Enyewu or there's a Bruce Onampriyanka today, there's zero reference point. And yet these are our old masters. And so that's kind of where I guess, for me, technology is so interesting, is because especially during COVID, we had more times on these digital devices and we were able to discover a lot more. A lot of people had more time to read into maybe art markets that they were not necessarily collecting in. And there was much more interest, especially with the year we had in 2019, 2020, the conversations that we had globally. A lot more people, I believe, kind of had their eyes opened a little more and were a bit more interested. And so, yes, it's moving. There's an interest, but I'm not sure that the interest directly translates into something very tangible yet.
Very interesting. So question for you guys, Kerstin and Christina, you saw that people were buying from different channels than they had previously. Were there references to the fact that they were buying from different regions than they typically would have bought from?
Well, I think we ask for what kind of reasons people tend to buy art online, and buying from different regions or countries was amongst the top 10 reasons, but not amongst the top 3 reasons. So I would naturally say it is a motivation because it makes it so much easier and accessible. And I think that's a smart thing for the art market to evolve into, to make international purchases so much more low barrier. But I think it would be too short of a jump to say it's just been because of distance reasons why people tend to buy online.
Again, these are all these, as you said, there's the report that answers questions, but also leads to a whole bunch more questions, which is really the exciting part. And that's why I've been following every single one of the interviews you've done that have been posted, because in every interview, there's another point that comes up, depending on who the interviewer are. And so it's time to build a whole picture around the picture, which I'm really appreciating, because it shows just how much of an influence your report has had.
It comes with a lot of layers. That's what we think as well. And it's like an onion, which you can still peel in whatever direction. We agree. Yeah.
And so going back to why, go ahead, Nana. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, just sorry to interrupt you, but I have a question. In a part of your report, you mentioned that browsing doesn't lead to buying. So I guess my question to you is, did people use like the technological platforms to just browse and discover, or were they using the technological platforms to buy?
Christina, do you want to jump in? Or
yeah, I think you might have the numbers better than I, but they did. I think the report showed that most people used platforms to get information and to browse and to research, but they bought sometimes, or it didn't really go through to the sale in the end.
But they still
please go make it.
I think they still, in comparison, third-party platforms still prove to be very successful when it comes to purchase transaction. And the reason for this is very easy, very simple, because next to online auctions and e-commerce shops, they were the only online sales formats actually providing a click and buy option. So you can't really count any purchases when click and buy options weren't provided at all. So third-party platforms are good for purchases in general, but they're even more important for research, as Christina said, because it's a one-stop solution to do your research rather than on Google. You do it on Artsy, and it's a very powerful tool also to discover.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you very much.
And you kind of touched on why as well when you were just talking about the personalization, right? Sometimes you just need that it's when you go to a store, right? You need that salesperson to give you that little argument that tips the balance to make you go, okay, now I'll buy it.
But it needs to be in real time.
It needs to be the moment. Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
When you feel like you want to buy something, I think all of us know the feeling, like we really interested and maybe we shouldn't do it because I don't know, maybe it's too expensive, but we really would like to have it now. And this moment can disappear quickly if no one in that right moment catches you, or gives you the information you need in order to make the step.
So you mean that Josh the bot who answers the questions on AT&T.com wouldn't work?
Well, funny that you mentioned this, because one of the things Christina and myself are kind of questioning as artpreneur is if that part of personal communication actually needs to be personal, or does it just have to feel personal, especially considering all the resources available at the back end. So that forms a challenge, how maybe at least part of this communication could actually be digitized by AI, even if it's art, and even if we don't want to allow ourselves to picture how this is going to feel, but we think there might be a potential to at least outsource a part of this communication to make it personal and instant and not eating up all your resources on a gallery site.
And this is also people are getting used to. I think more and more, there are more and more bots around. And if you buy a piece of clothing, for example, and you have a question, even though you don't get the question right away, you can still ask the question. And if someone tells you, okay, we'll get you the answer in the next couple hours, I think you're still satisfied, So it's, I think, but that's interesting to see in how far these kind of, like we can really transfer experiences from other industries into the art world, and if the art world can or want to accept, and what does the customer expect, and what does the art world wants to offer.
Oh, no, absolutely. So, we're reaching the end of the podcast, and I have questions for you guys. So we've asked you questions about what were the surprising findings, etc. Once you publish the report, and it's now been 6 months, what has been the most surprising reaction? What has been the most surprising to you guys about this report, between why you made it and to what it turned into?
I think we mentioned in the beginning that we never intended to change the world as a whole, but we said we want to provide information for players, for people who actually see the future is changing and would like to adjust them very selves to whatever is needed. So I think in terms of reaction, it's been what we hoped for, and even more, because people has confirmed that it's been helpful, and everyone picked something else for their very own business models, which is relevant or could be relevant, also in terms of what's feasible short term for them. So I wouldn't say there were surprises. It was maybe surprising that most of the media reactions came from the international side rather than the German side, which kind of is funny, but that's
from the business side.
That has and from the business, from the economic side. So that's
economic side,
surprise, yeah.
Yeah, more from the economic than from like an art. I guess thinking about Handelsblatt. I think that was a surprise to me. Who picked it up first? And that was definitely the economic media.
But I think in many ways, it's actually, the answer is what you guys have been saying all along, right? Which is that, that there has definitely become a very big e-commerce element to art. And I think that's probably why Economic Magazine, Business Magazine picked up on it. It's because it's kind of making the numbers as to, whereas in the art world, you kind of put a whole different truth out there and said, hey, really what you said is, hey guys, you might be, the big players right now, but if you don't get on board with the digital, here's what people think about the digital. And again, the art world can have a lot of blinders, which kind of stops them from looking around and seeing what's going on. And then when you try and play catch up, of course, you always kind of go to certain tested methods that don't always work across industries, so that could get complicated. And when it comes to Germany, I think the French have an expression that says that people who fix shoes are always wearing their worst shoes. So maybe that's the explanation. But it's been such a pleasure having you guys. Again, as I said, I've been reading the report, taking information out of it, kind of giving me ideas. And so we absolutely would love to see another edition, because I think I think you guys got so much feedback. This is the part that I love, is that people are not just reading it, but actually sharing with you and saying, hey, this is what we think, and they want to talk to you and they want to find out more, right? You kind of become experts in this field, which you were before, but it's not at the forefront, and you have all this audience asking questions. And I think that might evolve the report as well. But I think this whole new industry that's emerged out of 2020 and out of COVID, in terms of the more pure online art business, would be really interesting to find out more for. So I just want to thank you both so much. This has been wonderful. We were really excited. And I think, for me at least, this has exceeded the expectation I had, because I've seen so many interviews that were great, but just being able to ask you guys questions and getting feedback from the audience has been wonderful. So thank you very much to everyone.
Well, thank you to you guys for the invitation, again, for the audience who stayed until the very end. And it's always a pleasure to share everything we gained in terms of knowledge, but also to have a dialogue about it, because it evolves ourselves as well. And that's what we're in for, to actually keep on moving and becoming better day by day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tina,
Thank you.
all of you for being here to our art talk tonight, and looking forward to meeting you very, very soon again.
We will do at one time, promise.
We will come to Berlino.
Yeah, please.
Anytime. Let us know. We'll be happy to show you around.
Wonderful. Thank you again, and have a lovely, lovely evening. And thank you. Really, it was a wonderful talk. Grazie.